motions flare in the car.
Boy,
it's possible.
And Sam, you hardly ever see that team make that mistake.
Yeah.
But you notice that Pete Parrott, like Paul said, doesn't let his boy leave that pit until he knows that car's right.
They made one mistake. They're not going to compound it by making another. They put it behind them as fast as they can.
Danny Sullivan continues to work his way around as the miles click away under his speeding Penske machine. Rick Mears trying now to catch up. Rick fell all the way to 5th place, and you saw, well, you see now, Danny Sullivan is closing down on Teo Fabi. Fabi is running in 4th place. So Sullivan in the lead, closing in, and Rick Mears, not satisfied with the tire that they just gave him, is back into the pits once again.
Or as the wheel
car rolls to a stop, perhaps they didn't get that tire and wheel assembly fully on.
4 tires again, Paul Page. The 4 that went on, they're coming off with just 2 laps on them, and they're putting 4 brand new tires back on. This is unusual for the Penske operation.
Jack, the question is, did they put on tires on that last stop before this one that were used earlier in the race?
It looks as if indeed they did, Paul. And remember, you know, when you have a blistering problem, you're pulling tires off mostly before you really need to take them off, and if you can keep the heat in them and they're satisfied with the way they're working, but you take your tires out of rotation as well because you blister a right front, you've got to put a different right front on. So there's a lot of permutations that maybe Bobby and Sam could get a little more into, but when you've got a tire problem, especially as sensitive as these cars are, there's a lot of experimentation that goes on down on pit road.
Bobby?
And Jerry Breon on that pits calls the tire shots. Jerry wasn't happy with it. Maybe he figured that they did grab the wrong tires, and Jerry says, get him back in.
Well, you know it had to be something serious because we have just 10 laps to go, and Rick could have ridden out an imbalanced tire. You know what I mean? It had to be something that would have threatened the car out there.
As we suggested earlier, Rick learned a lot from his accident at San Air. Safety was a big part of that. He learned how to protect himself, and where he might have tried to ride it out before, he certainly will not try and do it now. Rick Mears has dropped back in the field now to 7th place. His teammate Danny Sullivan leads, being chased now by Michael Andretti. Just 18 seconds back, Mario is 3rd.
Presenting
Danny Sullivan charges, leading at Pennsylvania International now with just 8 miles to go of the 200 scheduled distance. He is also, if we finish exactly as we see it, at the top of the points order in the fight for the national championship. So he will retain the points lead if he can only stay here. But that seems to be a rather large if. His teammate Rick Mears was chasing, and suddenly a blistered tire brought him in, and just in 2 quick little stops to correct that problem, dropped all the way back to 7th place. On board with Bobby Rahal, who is having a dismal run as he sits back, running in 12th position right now.
Now, Danny, remember, Paul, Danny is getting the information from what happened to Rick. Rick took one hard run at Danny. His tires just went away immediately, which meant they were on the verge of it. All this information has been related to Danny, and he's just not, or relayed to Danny, he's just not going to make that mistake.
Can you imagine the frustration Bobby Rahal is experiencing now, having come into this race very much in contention for the championship, now faced late in the race with watching the previous leader of the championship, Danny Sullivan, extending his lead and pulling away from him on the track.
Danny Sullivan with 5 laps to go, darts under Emerson Fittipaldi, another contender at the beginning of the day in the points fight, but who will finish now if he maintains his position in 8th place as Danny Sullivan continues to charge with apparently no major problems on the car. Sam Post.
No, and you know, we've talked so much about Danny, but just remember Roger Penske, his team with Rick Mears, won Indianapolis. Danny would, as of this moment, be almost prohibitive favorite for the national championship. That means, you see there, Derek Walker in Danny's pit. That means that the Roger Penske organization will have swept everything of value in IndyCar racing this year, the Indy 500 and the national championship, if this continues. So today is a pivotal day, a very significant one in the championship.
And everybody would like to have the Penske cars right now, wouldn't they, say?
Wouldn't they, though?
The fastest thing going at the moment.
Absolutely, and you'd like to drive for that team.
Of course, the indication is that the Penske cars that are driving now, and by the way, the one that Danny is in fact the one that he won at Portland, and the Penske cars are in fact for sale. Indications are that Andy Penske may be bidding on a couple, and certainly Frank Arciero's team has already indicated that they want one for next year, but fitted not with Chevrolet but with Cosworth engines.
Yes,
1 lap to go. The white flag is out for Danny Sullivan. Can he get through this lap? The tires have been a problem, but Sullivan has been very smooth throughout the day. Michael Andretti is 12 seconds back, so if there would be any stutter at all in this machine, Michael could close and charge. But Danny Sullivan seems well on his way to a checkered flag and well on his way to a victory for Roger Penske as he scores it. Sullivan wins for Penske at Penske's own racetrack.
The fuel held out, the tires held out. Danny did a good job. They played a team. They beat Mario and Michael just because of the teamwork.
Michael comes across the line, finishing this race in second place. Mario, if he maintains position, will come across the line in third place. So now it is Danny Sullivan that is the winner here at Pennsylvania International Raceway in the Bosch Spark Plug Grand Prix. The Penske team absolutely dominated the situation here.
Well, there he comes into the pits. The tires are still good, no problem. They dominated this whole race. Danny's dead on the pole. One of these days, not too far away, they're going to say, hey, he's a good oval racetrack driver.
The average speed of the race, unofficially, 148.53 miles an hour, breaking the previous fastest ever mile run. That was a record set at 138 miles an hour at Phoenix in 1987. So Danny Sullivan is our winner at Pennsylvania International. Second place, unofficially, Michael Andretti, then Mario. Teo Fabi is the Sullivan car, and Roger Penske already in the winner's circle. Fabi is fourth. Raul Boycel runs in fifth. We'll be back to talk with Danny Sullivan right after this. Mile race has been won, and Danny Sullivan has won it. Here's Jack Arute.
Well, Danny Sullivan, congratulations. A great victory, and you really needed in this stretch drive for the championship.
Well, I did. You know, this is critical. A short oval. I've never won here. Pole win. It was great. I tell you, I owe a big thanks to Rick, because we had a plan beforehand to let him get through the first corner, and then he'd break traffic for me. And then when I got in the lead, he sat second for me. I mean,
let's talk about that plan, because we witnessed it from Roger Penske and Derek Walker's side of things down on pit road. And, you know, we've always talked about the fact that you guys are allowed to go racing and race for position. But today, the plan really was put into effect. I've never seen Penske as animated in calling the shots, especially when it came to putting Michael Andretti a lap down.
Well, he was, and it was a good plan, because the two races previous, we'd seen where the outside front row guy had gotten chopped or knocked into the wall. We didn't want that. We wanted to run as a team, break our way through traffic. I needed the points, and Rick needed to win the race or be right up there. So that was a plan, and I had to go with that. And then we said, okay, at the last 50 laps, we'll figure out then how to go racing.
Tire blisters. When you saw it developing on the right side, how concerned were you?
Well, I was very concerned, because what happened is the car was handling great. We were running fast, and then all of a sudden down in 3, the car just moved on me and got out of shape. I thought I had a puncture, and I was concerned that I didn't want it to happen in the middle of the corner. It was a concern for everybody, but it wasn't anything that was evil.
Well, there was no evil for Danny Sullivan today, as he takes the congratulations and the trophy here this afternoon. But the man that finished second is with Brian Hammonds. Brian?
Michael Andretti did finish second, but had it not been for a stop-and-go penalty, you might have repeated as winner here. What happened there?
Barry Green called me in, and then he said stay out, and it was too late. I couldn't make the turn because I had a blistered right front tire, and then I had to use escape road, and they black flagged me because of that. It was a shame.
With that in mind, with the blistering tire problem, were you trying to run as hard as you could to catch the leader?
Oh, yeah. I mean, in the end, I was running some 21.2 laps, which is a lot quicker than I qualified, and the car was on rails. I think if we would have been, you know, equal with him on the track, I think we would have passed him and been able to win it.
Second place, some valuable points. Are you still in the running for the championship, in your opinion?
We're not giving up.
Michael Andretti, second place today. Jack?
Michael?
Well, Ben Dixon from the sponsoring organization here is about ready to make the presentation to Danny Sullivan, emblematic of his victory here in a racetrack where he's a minority owner. Can you believe that? The owner takes home part of the cash today. Back up to you, Paul.
Well, for Danny Sullivan, it's a 10th career win and ties him with such great names as Louis Chevrolet, Frank Lockhart, and Peter DiPaolo with 10 wins for their careers. Michael Andretti with a new experimental Cosworth engine comes in second. As we take a look now at the rest of the top order, here, the official finish at Pennsylvania International Raceway for the 200-miler. Now, let's go back to the pits. Jack Arute is with Rick Mears.
Well, Rick Mears, Danny Sullivan, your teammate, credits you with a lot of the reason why he was able to go to victory lane. A tough break to drop you from second to seventh with that blistered tire. But first, why did you have to come back in? Was there another problem with the tires?
Well, we weren't sure. I went back out and the car was very nervous. You know, the rear end was very loose on it, and I was afraid maybe I had some trouble with the right rear tire that we didn't change, or maybe one of the fronts were on wrong. And when it came back in and changed all 4 tires, we found out the only problem was really just the hot rear tires with the cold front just made it that way. So we just couldn't take a chance on it.
Well, he's been in a point chase before, but this man is embroiled in it, and we saw something today, Roger Penske, that to my knowledge I've never seen before, and that was really you playing with a 2-car team, trying to use the strategy. Danny alluded to it in the Victory Lane interview. He said, we don't like to do it, but with this racetrack and with the points and everything else that we've had to do today, we had to use both cars to be able to ensure that Danny would stay in the points chase.
Well, I think, Jack, it is one of those races. It's so tough here to pass, and it's fast, and, you know, one mistake, Danny's trying to win the championship with Al Jr. going out early and Ray Hall having a problem. You could see that. It was a matter of staying out of trouble. On the other hand, you got to keep running. So, you know, Rick set the pace, and we didn't want to have the fellas push each other up into the traffic. That was the key thing they talked about prior to the race, and you could see that all day. But at the end, when Rick had the tire problem, we came in, and he said it didn't feel right, and it's just not worth it. We made the wrong call. We should have changed all 4 tires instead of just the fronts.
Well, you made the right call, though, because Danny Sullivan made it to Victory Lane, and he's the guy that's in the points chase right now with but 2 races left on the schedule. Paul?
And really only 4 men have a shot for winning the PPG Cup. The battle will obviously go to Miami, where we will cover the final race of the season. Now let's go back to the pits and Brian Hammonds.
Al Holbert, the team manager for Porsche, you have to be extremely pleased. 4th place, your best finish ever.
We're very pleased. The fact is now I think that our driver can have confidence in the team, and we can start to see what he's made of.
You just came back from Germany with some good news, didn't you?
Sort of. I think you would say that. I'm a sports car fan, as you know, but the fact is our Quaker State Indy program has been given the top priority with a commitment for the next few years that should really bring our effort up to the top where it belongs.
Porsche trying to climb near the top of IndyCar racing. Paul?
The race has been run. The Penske team has dominated. Danny Sullivan has won and continues at the top of the PPG points fight.